Hello, my name is Marjorie Partch. My family home is in Norwalk, Connecticut. This is addressed to our Congressman Jim Himes, who has been very good for us. I want to say his office has made calls on our behalf. So this is a follow-up, and this is a cover letter for another letter that's going out to around a dozen various elected officials about the case, which will become apparent. So by way of introduction, I say the enclosed complaint to the Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Public Health and the Chief State's Attorney details one small example of the epidemic criminal fraud practiced in nursing homes and probate courts, working in collusion to deprive our disabled and elderly citizens of their constitutional rights. Dear Congressman Himes, this is a case in point among thousands. I'm going to start off with 3 points and explain each point. Number one, my mother, Mrs. Dorothy Partch, was a public high school English teacher for 20 years in Norwalk. She was a civil servant. She is now being held captive and isolated as a resident at Wilton Meadows Healthcare Center in Wilton, Connecticut. This is despite our long-standing plans for home care and my legal authority as her durable power of attorney, healthcare representative, attorney-in-fact, and her pre-designated conservator. I took care of her at home following what they called a mini-stroke in 2003. I took care of her at home with absolutely no problems, with nothing but praise from all her therapists and doctors for 7 years, from 2003 until 2010, when she had a massive stroke, and I brought her to the hospital and this nursing home for rehab. Upon its discovery of assets in my mother's name, Wilton Meadows reversed its discharge plans for my mother in July 2010 and brought a fraudulent application for involuntary conservatorship to the Norwalk Wilton probate judge, who has since recused himself from our case. Because the probate court seized all our joint accounts without a hearing, we have neither the financial resources nor the time in my mother's fragile life to fight this out in Superior Court. There must be additional protections against criminal violations of constitutional rights. Number two, this is then fleshed out in a 7-page letter, but this is my summary. Number two, working with the regional Connecticut long-term care ombudsman, who has been a savior, I absolutely believe he saved my mother's life. I have filed previous complaints regarding my mother's neglect and abuse at Wilton Meadows to the Department of Public Health Facility and Practitioner Licensing and Investigation sections, resulting in multiple citations, in addition to bringing various actions in probate and superior courts. While my mother has recovered from an assault-related dislocated shoulder, which she suffered in January of 2011, she is still suffering from isolation, over-medication, an uncapped broken tooth, neglect of her delicate skin, including carcinomas that I have to repeatedly point out that the facility doesn't take care of them unless I point them out. When I point them out, they just want to have my visits curtailed in retaliation. But worst of all, she's in an enforced incarceration in an institutional setting when she has a loving home to return to. At one point, I wasn't allowed to visit her at all because the nursing home observed me tape recording her perfectly lucid statements about coming home for Christmas. She was perfectly clear about her desire and her ability to come home for Christmas. That was in November 2010. They didn't allow me to see her for 6 weeks over the holidays. And that's when I called the ombudsman. And he got me in to see her. And my first visit was one of the most horrifying experiences of my life when I saw her covered with bruises that were black. I've never seen such black bruises in my life. They weren't blue, they were black. There were others that were fading in different places in her body. She was in a flimsy little johnny coat, freezing cold.